Hey friends, today I'm chatting with my friend Bozoma Saint John about her new book, The Urgent Life. We're talking all about how to navigate grief. And unfortunately, she's gone through a lot of it in her life and has a lot of wisdom. We're also going to talk about, are you a 10-gallon person or a 100-gallon person? And you really want to know, right?
Right.
All right. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Hello, friends. It's going to be a great day. Have a great conversation on deck for you. But let's start with our quote of the day. I don't want to get to the end of my life and find that I've just lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it as well. That's by Diane Ackerman. I like that. Also, from our guest, we have a second quote. You can't leave it to forces outside yourself to create your destiny. You have to do it. And that is from Bozoma Saint John, friends. She wrote this book, The Urgent Life, all about her life navigating crisis and death and a lot of grief. I think you guys are going to really connect with her and really see another way through. I really think you guys are going to love this. Anyhow, super excited to have you guys back with us today on Heal Squad. Don't forget to leave us a review. We will leave a link for that below in the comments or in the summary. And then if you are here on YouTube, anything that you liked or want to hear more from, just leave us a little comment below and we'll try to fulfill that wish or need. Bozoma Saint John is an influencer, American businesswoman. She's had a stellar career in marketing. Most recently is the Global Chief Marketing Officer at Netflix. She began her career at Spike Lee's advertising agency. She was a senior marketing executive at Apple, Pepsi, Uber, and so many more. She was named one of the most influential chief marketing officers by Forbes in 2021, and she's got a really successful online tutorial called the Badass Workshop, which teaches others to be their greatest selves. And I can't think of a better teacher than her because she is such a badass. Heal Squad, let's get into this conversation with Bozoma. Okay, so The Urgent Life.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I love the color, the cover.
Thank you.
I really love the cover. And I love, I mean, listen, for everybody who's listening here, I'm just going to kind of start with what you have navigated grief-wise so that they can just get that you're probably their person right now that they need to hear from. So you lost your college boyfriend to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
You had to navigate losing your husband, obviously, to cancer. You had a child born prematurely. Of course, you also were navigating an interracial marriage.
Yes.
You've gone through a lot and you share it so vulnerably in this book. And you know, you're literally one of my favorite people on the planet.
Wow.
And I'm sure you hear that often because you're such a leader and you're such a badass. And we've had so many chats with you on the show in the past about being a badass and being a woman that just, you know, can stand up for herself. But this is a whole other kind of side. I didn't know all of this stuff about you.
Yeah.
It's a lot to kind of go through. And I feel like it's going to be really helpful for people who are listening. I know I was learning so much as I was reading it, you know, to kind of navigate these times, because sometimes for some of us, it's like when it rains, it pours, and then it just keeps pouring. Like, I feel like for me,
yes,
God keeps granting me so many miracles and so many great things, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I'm not going through it a lot.
Woo, say that. Yeah.
So do you feel like you're someone who has that kind of life where shit just keeps happening?
It's like the peaks and the valleys constantly, you know? And I remember only once, praying and asking God for the plateau.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, Lord,
no more, please.
Right? I was like, Lord, now you know I love you and sometimes I don't like you. Okay? Lord, God, where is my damn plateau? I see some people out here just skating through life. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe they're not skating though. Like maybe they're actually not actually living. Maybe that's why they're not on these high highs and low lows. Because if you're living, right, like really living,
Yeah.
taking the risks, loving hard, like chasing your dreams, doing the stuff that people told you that you couldn't do, bearing down your teeth and gritting, some bleep is going to happen to you. It's not always going to be a win. It's not always going to be like, ooh, trophy, here I go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's the truth of life. And yes, it is scary. And yes, it is sad. Lord God, it is grief, over all kinds of losses, not just in human losses, but in dreams and aspirations and relationships and all kinds of losses, right? But it is what actually then makes this life worth living is if you're in the high highs and you have to take the low lows with it.
So, what I've always kind of turned to is that you can't have growth without the pain.
True.
So, whenever I'm in pain, I'm like, okay, we're growing. But that's where I was like, God, I don't need to grow anymore. We've been growing a
Right?
lot. Like, can we
Oh,
just chill, please?
Oh yeah. No, in my book, I literally write. I was like, at one point, I asked, and I still ask God. I'm like, is it possible for me not to learn these big lessons through so much pain?
Yeah, I don't
I'm
think so.
like, can we be even now? Is this good now? Like, because I really don't want to do that anymore. And at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm like, well, I still got to take the big risks though. Like, Maria, I still have to love again, deeply, vulnerably, openly. Like, I still have to do it. And does that mean that there's a risk that something happens to that love? Yes, there is.
Because you had it happen twice.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. In
It's
terrible,
crazy.
terrible ways. In terrible, terrible, terrible ways. Ways that if I said right now, or at any point,
Ooh, I have the chills.
if I said, you know what? Like, I don't want to venture there anymore, I don't think anybody would blame me. No one would say, like, oh yeah, no, Boz, what are you doing? Like, just relax, like go do it again. No, if I was talking to you and I was like, Maria, look, this happened and that happened, and it was so painful, blah, blah, and I said, you know what? Because of that, I am gonna take my vows of celibacy and I'm turn myself into a nunnery, and I'm just gonna sit there and pray every day. You'd be like, yeah, that's a good idea, Boz. In fact, I support you. Where should I send the jam? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
That's what you would say. But
I know.
instead, it's like, look, I still love this life. I still love the risk of it all. And I want to keep living it. And that is why I'm living urgently, because I love it. I absolutely love it.
You said something earlier that I know runs through all of our minds because I have it too sometimes, where you're like, how come they just skate by? How come like they're all healthy? How come they're all healthy
Mm.
and I'm not, right?
Mhm.
Or, you think all of these things. And of course, luckily I don't live in that and I don't stay in that, but the
Yeah.
things, come through your mind.
Yes.
Um, how did you go from kind of those thoughts to not,
Mm.
because you do live and you are bold and big.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about you and your pink car.
Exactly.
So, how do you do that in the face of all
Yeah.
this adversity?
I mean, seriously, how tempting is it though to look at somebody else's life and say, gosh, like why can't my life be like that? Like why can't I have it easy like that? Or why can't I be successful like that? Or why can't my man be as dope as that girl's man is? Why don't my kids behave like that? It's so easy. And by the way, we do it self-consciously too, right? Constantly do it. And the thing that I know for sure, and I realize is, first of all, we don't know everybody's stories. Just as you said, look, we're great girlfriends. I love you dearly. We've talked about so much. And yet there's stuff in my book that you don't know or didn't know before you read it, right?
Yep.
Hell, my own sisters people who have been with me since before I can remember consciousness. There were things that they read that they were just like, my God, Boz, I didn't know. Like that is the life and the world that we live in. We don't know what's happening all the time in somebody else's life. And there's this I don't know who said it or where it came from, but I remember once reading it and it always stuck with me, which was just like, if you were to take all of your problems and put them in the middle, of a circle, and everybody else put their problems in the middle, you would grab yours back real quick. You'd be like, actually, what? I don't want nobody else's. Like, this is that, what is it at Christmas time? It's like the white elephant, or like that game where like you take.
Yes.
Right. It's like, no. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna keep my problems. You know what? You can have yours. I don't even want to risk it. Let me just go ahead and grab mine back. Because you just never know what other people are going through. And so, yes, even though it is natural to us to look at somebody else and sometimes even positively say, oh, that's a goal. I want to do that. It's not always negative. It's sometimes it's just like, I want to do that thing. But you don't know their journey. And also your destiny, the bigger point, your destiny is yours and yours alone. The journey that you're walking is yours and yours alone. The gifts that you have are yours and yours alone. The blessings that you'll get are yours and yours alone. And so the pain and the challenges are also yours and yours alone. That is the way it works. That's the way of the universe. And so the more we're able to appreciate the fact that this is actually a really individual journey. Yes, we can have partners. Yes, we can have children. Yes, we can have all kinds of relationships. But this journey is ours. And as soon as we start to appreciate that and live intentionally, life becomes worth living.
And accepting it.
Yes. Yes.
Like there's a reason all of these things happen to us. And I think the reason why you'd grab your problems back too is because you can handle your problems.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's why, they say God only gives you what you can handle.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain things I can think of really quickly that I was like, oh, no, I can't handle those, but I can handle the ones I have.
Oh, look, this. And I know for sure there's got to be somebody listening who feels like, I can't handle what I got.
Yeah.
There's lots of people who say that. And I won't lie and pretend that there wasn't a time in my life when I thought, I can't handle this. Actually, it's too much. The burden is too much.
What was that moment for you?
I've had so many of them. It comes in my personal life. It comes in my professional life, all of it. When after I lost my daughter, I had to deliver her at 7 months because I developed preeclampsia. And she died right after her first breath. And it was just the most devastating, heartbreaking moment. And I knew I wanted to become a mother. I knew I wanted to have a baby. And so I got pregnant again pretty quickly after her death. Of course, not advised by my doctor, not advised by anybody in my life.
Especially because of the preeclampsia.
Oh, yeah. And they were like, first of all, you're mourning. Next, your body needs to heal. And I'm like, bump all of that. I'm doing what I want to do. So I get pregnant again. And at 8 weeks, my blood pressure spikes, and I'm like, oh God, here we go again. And I thought in that moment, I can't do this. Right. I made a mistake. God, get me out of this. Now, I don't even know where to go because I don't want to go forward and I definitely don't want to go back. So what do you do?
Wow. Oh my gosh. That you just described that so well that it gave me chills.
Yeah.
What do you can't go back and you can't go forward because you know what forward can bring.
Yeah. And you can't go backwards. I'm already here. And so then what do you do? What do you do? And so for a lot of people who feel that way, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like there are no options. You don't know which way to turn because every way you turn is bad.
Yeah.
And for me in that moment, especially, all I could focus on was the dream that I had aspired to, the dream of a healthy, living child. That was the only thing I could focus on, even in knowing that that could potentially not happen. Every doctor warned me. They said, look, you might be in another situation like your last pregnancy. And I was like, well, I'm here now. So And by the way, the guilt of that, and also the anger at myself, anger at my husband, anger at the doctors, anger at everybody. Because I was just like, well, why'd y'all let me get here again? Why'd you let me do this? And feeling like there's no options, but I do think that for me, I have found my way in choosing the joy. I'm not saying that I'm fearless or that I don't have any regrets or don't have guilt or there's, the bad things don't enter my mind sometimes. They always do. But I also then have to proactively choose the joy. Proactively. And I'm talking about sometimes it's like moment by moment, reminding myself all the time. So
How do you
again,
do
it's
that?
not as if it doesn't work. It's not as if I don't have the fears, but it's choosing the joy. It's fine. Like, you know what that song? Count your blessings, count them one by one. Count your blessings. You know that song? Do you know?
I don't, but I love it. I'm like, count your blessings.
Oh my God.
I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great song. It's like an old church song.
That's
but
great.
But like I have to remind myself that I'm like, okay, count my blessings, count my blessings. Which are the blessings? What are the blessings? Especially when it's like a hard moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember what is the joy in this dark place. And somehow, and I know it probably sounds very frou-frou, but look, it has saved me on more occasions than I can count. It has saved me when I've been in the boardroom and I'm getting attacked. The microaggressions are aggressing. And I'm thinking like, I'm gonna like hurt everybody in here, and feeling like, what is the purpose? Why am I here? What are the blessings? Like, why? I could just quit and go home and nobody would blame me. Everybody would be like, yeah, of course, Black woman, go home because these folks are crazy out here. They're trying to take you down. So go sit down somewhere. Go get an easier job where people are not going to bother you.
I told a boardroom of executives I'd rather work at Dunkin' Donuts because it was so toxic there.
Yeah.
And I go, and I mean it.
Yeah. And by the way, there's somebody at Dunkin' Donuts right now who hates that job too.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be a way for us to actively choose the joy, actively choose the path that we want to take, because no one is going to come give it to you.
Yeah, Santa isn't showing up.
I say that all the time. I'm like, when you're sitting there in your darkness and your funk, and you're like, why isn't love coming to me? Why isn't joy coming to me? Why is not happiness? Why isn't there peace? Because those things don't thrive in the darkness. They don't grow in darkness. It's like a plant. I'm a plant mom. I have lots of plants. And if you ever tried to grow a plant in the dark, it would be shriveled and small. It would still sort of grow, but it wouldn't be healthy and beautiful with those luscious green leaves. It wouldn't do that. You have to go out to the light in order to get that. And so that's the same thing that I see in our grief and in our struggles and our challenges. It's like, no, you don't just sit back and passively say, why is love not coming to me? Why is happiness not coming to me? You have to go and get it. Go get it.
Yeah. Yeah, we always say Santa isn't showing up. But you did that, a really great example of choosing the joy. I do a little something different. I always say if something bad is happening or I have bad thoughts or whatever, I'm like, nope, what do I want? So this is what I don't want. And I go, what do I want? And then I start focusing on what I want.
Yeah.
And then other times when bad things come in, like fear-based things, I'm like, not my story. It's not my story.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helps me too, because it gives me the option, because we don't know 100% that that's going to be our story. We're now pontificating.
Yeah.
So those two things help me, but you actively chose the joy. And I remember reading this and I loved this. When you and your husband, Peter, came home from the hospital and they had said there was nothing else that they could do for him.
Mm-hmm.
Though they wanted him to stay there, you guys went home anyway, and you had a party with all your friends.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, it was such a, I would like to say that it was a hard decision, but it was actually the easiest thing to go home and throw a party. It felt like, gosh, it makes me want to cry. It felt like a great send off. It's like when somebody retires from work or somebody's leaving the job and people gather at the bar or they gather wherever and they're just like, yeah, here's to a great one, you know? And it's like, why wait until the funeral to do that? And I think for Peter, especially, he wanted to celebrate his friends and celebrate his life in a way that we were urgent about. We knew we didn't have time. We knew it. And also, what a gift that is. So, even in that dark moment, what a gift to know that, like, oh, okay, the end is coming. So, I must celebrate now. There is no choice. I can't wait till Christmas. I can't wait till the next birthday. I can't do it. And I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad we did, because this is like the poetry of the universe and, sometimes synchronicity and the way things happen, is that Peter died 4 days before his 44th birthday. And so we actually did have another birthday party. His funeral was his birthday party. But I'm so glad that we decided to party before that, because
Yeah.
we wouldn't have made it.
Well, I feel like you had said something about it being kind of what you guys did. So it was organic to you guys.
Yeah.
And was he doing shots coming home from the hospital with terminal cancer? Am I crazy that I remember that?
Like, why not? I mean, you're gonna go. You know what I'm saying? You might as well do some shots on your way out.
I'm all for it, but I was reading it. I'm like, wow. Well, because you just think someone's so weak in those moments. But it sounds like he got some kind of strength to really get to live in the joy and live urgently. Like you said, the book is called The Urgent Life.
Yes. Yes.
I really do agree with the gift in the knowing, because then you can do the things and say the things.
Yes.
With my mom, when she was passing, I always had the conversations with friends like, I can't imagine losing my mom instantly, right? I had a cousin that died in a car crash that was so devastating to us, because it catches you so off guard and there's nothing you can do. Suicide, you dealing with Ben, that's so hard. But then also there's so much pain that comes in a long terminal illness too.
Yeah.
And so I've always had those conversations of what's worse. And I just still keep going back to my problems and choosing mine. And I was like, I got to have every conversation I wanted. I got to cuddle in bed with my mom. I got to tell her everything I wanted to tell her. Nothing was left unsaid. And nobody, other people don't get that when it's last minute. You might have hung up on a fight with somebody and then,
Yeah. I mean, it's what I feel. This is the complexity of it all. I felt that way about Ben's death, that, the guilt I carried around was that when I heard the phone ringing, I was so tired. I was so exhausted by his need and by his depression that I didn't turn around and answer the phone that last time. I'd been on the phone all day and I was just tired, and I felt such guilt, and I still do to some degree, that I didn't say more, that I didn't love him harder, that I didn't do whatever it was that he needed. And I know the truth, obviously, after lots of therapy, that there is nothing really that I could do. Like, saving his life is not my responsibility. And I know that. I know that intellectually. Emotionally is another thing. And so to your point, it's like, look, when you have the opportunity to revisit losses or tragedies or anything that has happened in your life that feels like, oh, this is going to stop me from doing the next thing, that's what I'm saying, you got to actively choose to be part of the good stuff. I actually learned that even more so in writing this book, that there were many memories in the book that I had packed away, put far, far away. And if I can be totally transparent, I didn't want to write about those things. And I tried to sort of lightly skirt some topics. And then my editor was like, oh no, Bose, you're going to have to go down in this, you're going to have to go down here. Okay. And get whatever that was down there and bring it up, because that's going to be crucial to the telling of your story. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I was fighting it. But the most beautiful thing about that process is that sometimes we look at our experiences and it feels very black and white. It just feels like it was all good or all bad. But even in excavating those memories, I found some good stuff in there that I had forgotten because I had packed it all so far away.
And you packed it in the bad box.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course. I was like,
so this
"Do not
must have been
open."
therapeutic.
Yeah, to some degree therapeutic. And also it's like, it's like if you've ever gone through an old box of photos,
All
or
the time.
reread old letters, and sometimes some of those photos make you laugh because they bring up a time and a memory, and sometimes they make you cry, and sometimes just like, oh my God, I wish I'd never done that. you know? That's what it's like. That's what it's like in writing a memoir. It's like that.
What was an example of something you didn't really want to excavate?
Oh, I definitely did not want to relive Eve's birth. Actually, not even just her birth, the labor. Um, because, in writing this, I had to do the trick of trying to remember specific detail because I wanted my memoir to feel like you were there in the room. I didn't want to talk about things sort of vaguely. I wanted you to feel like you were there hearing the beeps and the sounds of the machines and seeing the color of the nurse's uniform and understanding what was happening inside of my body as well. So going into that place was so difficult. I mean, the first time I wrote that chapter, I did sort of write over it. I didn't really talk about the labor of it. And when I was talking to Meg Leader, shout out to Meg, she's my editor, about that chapter, she was like, I know it's going to be tough, but you're going to have to tell us what labor was like with her. And one of the parts I write about in the book, in that particular experience that I had locked away, but now with time and opportunity to look back was so beautiful, is that I do remember feeling like it was she and I against the world. That we were both fighting for her life. And even though it didn't turn out triumphantly with her living, I felt so connected to her. And I am proud of us, in fighting for her. And I do think that there's a real opportunity sometimes to think about those moments that we want to pack away, that we don't want to think about, that we don't want to talk about, and understand the complexity of our joy and the complexity of our happiness. That it's not always just sunshine. There's some gray clouds in there too, but that you can find the joy if you look for it.
Where did you find joy in that, though?
Like I said, I
Was
found
the fight?
I found joy in being proud of us.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like we did everything we could. I didn't go out easy. She didn't go out easy, for sure. And so, like, what a fierce little soul she is. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
So excavating that is what brought that to the surface. I hadn't thought about it that way before.
It's a really, really cool way to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish my mom could have heard this interview.
Oh.
Because she lost her baby on Christmas Day delivering. Oh. It's the worst. Like, I don't know what's worse. I really don't know what could be worse than that.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible. I'm telling you.
That's a rough pain for both of you.
Yeah. Especially,
and she carried it every day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how can you not? It's like, look, for all of us, it's like, don't you mark time sometimes that way? It's like, look, I know that, and I talk about this in the book, that, Eve would have been 15 this year. And I often think about what her favorite foods would have been, or like what would have made her laugh. Maybe even what her eye color would be. Like I think about stuff like that all the time. Like sometimes a random thing will happen and it'll be like, poof, right there, a thought. And so sometimes it's like, I don't know that it is possible for us to let our grief go I really don't think it's possible. People say that all the time, like time heals all wounds. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. You just learn how to live with the wound. It
Yeah.
it definitely becomes a scar. And what happens on scars on your body? I have a few. And you look at them and you're just like, oh God, I remember when that happened. you know?
Yeah, I know.
You remember exactly what happened and how. If somebody were to ask you, like, what happened to your chin? I have one right here that I could tell you about. I fell off a bunk bed when I was 8.
Yep.
It's like, and so it's not as if like maybe the grief, the pain of the grief is not as sharp. But sometimes, like if you have a scar, sometimes like it's weird, right? It's like the phantom pain, or it's like if something happens to it in just the right way, you get a little sharp pain. That's what grief is like, I feel. It was like sometimes there's something that happens, you're just like, ooh, ouch. Oh God, no, that hurt. Okay, let me go do something else. So you don't get over it.
Yeah. What what do you feel like is your best advice for someone who's grieving right now? Because,
Mm.
the worst thing, actually, hold on. One of the things I really loved
Yeah,
was because you're grieving, there's different stages of grief.
yeah.
There's grief when you know there's an end, you get a terminal illness.
Mhm.
So I didn't realize for a long time before my mom even died, years, I was grieving. I was
Oh,
grieving
yeah,
the small losses of
yeah,
her along the way, the cognitive losses or whatever.
yes.
Um, I really loved what they told you in the hospital.
Mm.
I thought instead of saying it's gonna be okay, which everybody does, and you're like, "Bitch, it's not gonna be fucking okay." Excuse my language. It's not. It is
Yeah,
not gonna be okay.
yeah,
But take it one day at a time
yes.
was really beautiful.
Mm,
And
mm.
such a great lesson I love that you get to share with people so that they can pass that on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's the idea of taking one day at a time is double edged. It's double edged because
Mm,
when your days are really screwed up, when your days are really, really painful, sometimes it feels like I just don't want to do one day at a time. Like I want to jump ahead to the future. I want to be over and done with this thing. I think that's the complexity of grief too for a lot of people who are caretakers of someone who is dying, is that the relief that comes after they're gone, something we don't talk about, right? Because you feel badly, feel like, oh no, I should be in deep sadness. And it's like, no, both things can be true, that you can be in deep grief and deep relief of not having the burden anymore. And I do think that that is the complexity of all kinds of grief, is that if you're in a dark place right now, sometimes we do it to ourselves where we feel like we can't laugh, where you can't look at the sunshine and appreciate how it bounces off of a flower because you're supposed to be sad. And so, my only advice is that, consistent with what I've been saying about choosing joy, is that it is okay. You have the permission to feel all the range of emotion, not just your grief. This is not penance. You can find happiness. You can smile. You can laugh. You can share a drink with somebody. Like you can do all of those things. And please do, because it is what will remind you of the beauty of this life that you're living, even in the moments where you feel like you don't want to live it yourself.
yeah, that was a big thing for me when my mom passed
Mm,
because I had such relief after 5 years of caretaking.
yeah.
Luckily, I have this show, so I've learned that you can have both the grief and the relief and not be a bad person.
Yeah.
But I think, the general kind of feeling for people um, is I'm a horrible person.
Oh, yeah.
If I can move on and laugh and smile and,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah. And other people will make you feel that way too, which is
yeah,
the, probably a whole nother hour of conversation around other people's expectations and obligations for our lives that actually
Yeah.
causes us more grief than usually the trauma of the moment. That's a whole nother discussion.
Actually, you know what's so funny, Bose, is in tragedy, people really either show up or don't show up.
Maria,
And it's so glaring.
you
And you're
gonna go
like,
there? Are you gonna
wow,
go there?
I think we should, because listen, anybody who's dealing with grief in any kind of way, whether it's their own health issues, somebody
Mm,
else's, or a
mm.
loss or whatever, you're like, really? Like and then they're like, oh, but we didn't want to impose. And you're like, no, you just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, you just didn't show up. You didn't show up. Or are you causing more grief with your behavior?
Yeah.
Isn't it wild? I mean, I say it all the time, sort of casually, right? That grief is a crazy thing. It makes people act in all kind of weird ways. Yeah, and sometimes people in your life who don't show up the way that you expect them to show up because of their own traumas and their own issues and their own fears. I had
Or
a
just
very,
plain
very
selfishness. That
oh,
happens
yeah,
too.
yeah, that too.
Like
That too.
I can
That too.
give permission to certain, scenarios where you're like, oh, they were some people can't handle funerals.
Oh,
They
oh,
just can't.
yeah, yeah.
But here's the thing, when you can't, it's all about communication,
Yeah,
because the person needs to understand, you know what? I just don't do well in these environments. I want to be
mhm,
there for you. How can we have a
yeah,
separate day? How
yeah,
can we, you got to communicate.
yeah.
But, yeah,
Yeah,
I've dealt with all of it. It's
all of those things. And look, again, I think that this is the thing that we don't talk about enough, which is that when that happens to you, you are under no obligation to continue the relationship with whomever has disappointed you. Like there's no obligation. I don't care who they are. They could be the blood relative. They could be no. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do anything. And that is also a larger conversation about just our lives, and the way that we operate, because so many of us do have these imposed obligations and expectations that make it hard for us to function lightly in this life that we have, that we're so burdened by other people. And so, yes, if you have somebody in your life who has greatly disappointed you, even in the moment of grief or some other, nobody said you need to continue having a relationship with this person. You know what? They might turn over a new leaf. They might come and apologize and tell you that they couldn't handle the funeral or they couldn't be there for you because this and that and third that they were doing in their own lives. And then you might decide to forgive them. The point is that you are under no obligation to put yourself at risk for anybody else. No
Mhm.
one, not in the emotional space that you are. Do not. And if you feel like you're comfortable, then go for it. But under no circumstances do you force yourself into anything.
Yeah, I look at it like, for me, I know Kevin and I like to put our superhero capes on for everybody in every moment, right? Whether it's, I remember from the first times we moved in LA, random people we worked with, their dog was like in an accident. We'd race in the car to go like be there
Oh,
and
God.
help. Like whatever it is, we're always putting our superhero capes on.
Yeah.
And what's funny is it's really been like, oh, this person doesn't care about me equally. So I don't have to now invest in them the way I thought I did.
Yeah.
So it relieves me of having to worry about that person, care
Yeah.
about that person in that
Yeah.
regard. So now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I understand what the relationship is. It's all good.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
I was before in different moments, I was really hurt with family members because I think we have
Mm.
expectations of family members where they
Mhm.
have to or should be or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
And again, we base it on we know what we would be to that person.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a really tough thing to do because they're not you.
Right.
And
Not even a
they
slice.
they can't be, or they would have been there.
They would have done the thing.
Yeah.
If they really were about what you would do for them, they would have done exactly what you do. But that's also the thing, is that we've also got to get rid of that expectation that we have on others. We've talked about the expectations others have of us, but then those expectations we have of others, like sometimes you got to let that go if it is unfair to that person or to that relationship. You got to love people as they are. And that's why now it's like, look,
Or
Totally.
not.
Or
Or
not,
not.
yeah.
To
That's
me,
what I'm saying.
God shines a light and says, "You actually aren't thinking about this the way
Yeah,
you should be. Let me just show you who this person is.
yes, yes.
Let me just show you the inequality in the feelings, which doesn't
Right.
have to be a bad thing,
That's right.
right? It's
That's
not a
right.
bad thing. Doesn't mean that person's a horrible person. It's just they
Yeah,
don't care about you the way you care about them. So now you can
yeah,
make your decisions moving forward accordingly."
yeah. I saw this, segment that Bishop T.D. Jakes did with
Oh,
Oprah once.
I
I
love
love
him. We're
it.
getting him on the
Mhm.
show.
Oh,
I
he's
I
just
think Kelsey's
amazing.
working on it. I love
Good,
him.
good. I went to the Potter's House, by the way, in Dallas, the Sunday before my book came out, and it was so fantastic. Like, he's just so fantastic. Oh my God. But he often says so many wise things that I love. But this, he said, oh God, it's got to be 15 years ago, probably, but it has always stuck with me. And it's about this idea about people loving you the way that you expect them to, or the way that you would love them. And he said that he used gallons as the analogy. And he was like, if you're 100-gallon person, right, it takes 100 gallons to fill you up. And you are in relationship, romantic, platonic, familial, whatever, relationship with somebody who is a 10-gallon person, and you pour into them, oh, you'll fill them up quick. It's like you'll do the thing and they'll just be like, oh my God, thank you so much. And they really appreciate it. But when it's your turn and they pour everything they have into you, they're only filling 10%. And you feel so disappointed, but they gave you everything they have, everything. And so sometimes you have to look at people in your life, and if they are 10-gallon people, the question is, do you want 10-gallon people around in your life? And if you do, that is okay, but recognize that they are 10-gallon people. And sometimes
Yes.
they will give you everything they have, and it will simply not be enough.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've dealt with that over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's, that like I said, the range of emotions go from angry to, okay, I'm going to forgive
Mhm.
because they're just not the way we would be, and that's fine.
Yeah.
To actually relief. Now it's just relief. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I get it.
Yes,
So
exactly, exactly. But that has also opened my mind up so much because I recognize the 10-gallon people in my life. I'm definitely a 100-gallon person. And
I'm
so
like
I
100
recognize,
billion gallon. I'm like,
there you go.
but I love this analogy because I'm gonna look at it like that now. You're just a 10-gallon person. No
Yeah,
disrespect,
no disrespect.
but I need more. It's like in relationships.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just need
you just
more
need more.
than
And
they can
maybe
give.
correct. And maybe you're just like, look, I can't be in romantic relationship with someone who's a 10-gallon person because my love requires that I am filled all the way. So that quickly takes out people who I'm just like, oh no, you're a 10 nope, 20-gallon, 30-gallon, 40-gallon, 50. No, go, 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 go. I
Do
need
you
my
feel like you have quick
100-gallon.
identifiers for 10-gallon people?
Oh yeah. I think
Okay,
I think
tell
we all
me.
I think we all can, right? I mean, like, look,
You've lived with this 10-gallon thing longer than me. I am really excited
oh, I'm
about
telling you, this is gonna change your life, Maria.
Yeah, give
This,
me
I'm
the
telling you,
identifiers.
and it's quick. So I give you an example in romantic relationships, especially after Peter's death. As you can imagine, I was not looking quickly to jump into another vulnerable love relationship because the fear of like loss was just too overwhelming, right? Um, and my therapist at the time, after about a year of going to this therapist, and I think Peter had been gone maybe like, well, yeah, probably 18 months or so. And she said, you really need to get back out there. You need to, go date just casually, just you don't have to marry the person, but you're too young to be caught up in this cave. And I'm like, first of all, this sounds stupid, but okay. let me try this. So I go out. And here's the thing, little known fact about me, I'm like a serial monogamist. I'm not the person who's like casual out here having a good time. I was never that person. So I meet someone, uh, and I know immediately he's a 10-gallon person. I know it
How?
instantly. I know because he was not as thoughtful as I am. about other people's feelings or other people's needs. I'm the one who anticipates. I'm a little bit of an empath, right? So I anticipate other people's needs and I'll fulfill it quickly. Like it doesn't really take much from me to be like, oh, even like a quick text message or a meme that I'll send somebody, or I remember birthdays very like easily. I remember anniversaries. I remember all that stuff. So it's no problem. Like I love giving gifts, so it's like I'll send flowers. I will, get you the teddy bear that has your name embroidered on it. I'll send you a singing telegram just because I know it'll make you smile. Like I like that stuff. He wasn't that person. He was not thoughtful enough to consider that sometimes I needed a little surprise, a little pick me up. That wasn't necessarily expensive, just the thought of it. And it was in, responses that he would give or forgetting, important moments or, that kind of stuff. And even though I recognized that he was not 100-gallon person and that his 10 gallons meant that he remembered Valentine's Day because, of course, it was coming up and everybody in the world was saying it.
It's the obvious.
Or Christmas, It was like the big stuff, but he wouldn't remember when I had a big presentation at work and I was stressed out about it, or if I said it and I came home and he called, he wouldn't ask how it went, that kind of stuff. And I found myself feeling increasingly disappointed, resentful, feeling like he wasn't fulfilling what I needed. And that sometimes I think, again, maybe there's somebody who's listening who can identify with this, right? You start feeling resentful. You're just like, if it was you, man, I would be out here calling you. I would have taken you out to dinner. I would have chilled the champagne on the way home to celebrate your big day. Like I would have done all that stuff. And as I recognized the frustration that was building, I was like, oh, you know what? I need to get out of this. Like, this is actually not the thing that's going to fulfill me. It's going to just frustrate me some more because he's a 10-gallon person and he's going to pour into somebody and perhaps was pouring into me everything that he had. He remembered Valentine's Day and Christmas. Perhaps that was all that his mind could and his emotion could do, but it was not enough for me. So we had to break up.
I think this is your next book because I really do. Because with relationships, so I was just sitting in that relationship with you for a minute. And what I think a lot of us do is we'll say, but this person's a good person.
Yeah.
And so, because you start to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I need too much maybe or whatever, but so then you start to think, well, it's a good person and this and this and this. And then you feel guilty and then you think you're wrong. And then you go back into the cycle. But I really let's look at this from the 100-gallon and 10-gallon perspective, because we have needs that aren't being met. And if that's the case, someone else can.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it happens in work too. Like I've been a leader at several companies and I hire people who are 100-gallon people. I do. And I don't, there's nothing else to say about that because I reckon not just because they're going to work harder, but because I understand that I am pouring everything I have into the work and I need the reciprocal. And so even if somebody's a specialist at a certain thing they do, they are a 100-gallon person at the thing they do. And that is good enough for me. But if you're showing up a 10-gallon person in an interview, I could tell right away. I know. And I'm like, no, this is not going to work out. Try a different job because this is not it. Because the thing is that like, it's not even so much about the job itself. It's about the people that you're working with. Yeah. And so sometimes like we can build resentment at work too, right? Where it's like, if you are in a space and especially, it's like as an entrepreneur or in a corporate space, right? You work with people that are not doing what it is that you would do and how you would do it. Are they a 10-gallon person? They might be giving you everything they have.
Yeah.
But if it's not enough, you're just going to build resentment against that person. You're just going to be upset with them all the time. And they're going to be sitting there like, what did I do? Like, I'm giving you everything.
Yeah.
What to do? Like, I feel tired. I feel exhausted. I'm stressed out. I feel burnt out because I'm giving you everything. Well, they are just the right person for you. And it's not even so much about the job. Maybe they are completing the job, but they're not 100-gallon person to match your 100, and therefore you're disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've gone through that forever in life. No, it's true. But
Yeah.
I even like when I try to find a manager, I remember Desiree Gruber pulling me aside and being like, "You're never going to find someone that's going to be as good as you as and Kevin are, because you guys are
Mm,
so on top of things. You're so
mm,
self-starters. No one's going
mm,
to match." So in that scenario, we weren't going to find a 100-gallon match, and she just
mm.
knew it. This is a mutual friend of ours, by the way, who's another
I
powerful
know.
woman.
Love Desiree.
But I think this 100-gallon thing is going to be kind of an aha moment for a lot of people. And like you said,
Mm,
whether it's your romantic interest or at work,
yeah.
I think a lot of people can be freed from those scenarios where they just can't match up. They just
Yeah.
can't live up to that standard. You want your flowers on a random day. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you need to
Yeah.
feel full. But I
Exactly.
don't think we've ever looked at what our needs are officially.
Yeah.
And so I challenge everyone who's listening, who's in a relationship where they're not really feeling good, maybe you start to think of the things that you need
Yeah.
and write them down. And if
Yeah.
they're not being met, then sit with your partner and say, "This is what I need," and give
That's
them
right.
the chance.
Yeah.
I feel like Kevin and I did this in therapy once. Yeah, we
Mm,
did actually.
mm,
This isn't
mm.
just my genius idea right now. Thank you, Cecile. She said, she goes, "Sit down and write down your needs
Yeah.
and then work on that."
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really cool thing. So yeah, this is your next book.
Oh, well. All right. So let me call my publisher and
So
begin that.
right now it's The Urgent Life.
Yes.
So The Urgent Life is all about how we're going to get through all the shit that goes on in our lives, and
Tell you.
your inspiring story of how you did it. And then the next one is going to be, are you a 100-gallon person or a 10-gallon person? We're going to
Yes.
use that on our social media, so you know.
I'm like, go for it.
Bishop
Yes. Yes.
Jake, we'll talk to Bishop Jake about it too.
Exactly.
Um,
Get him to
but
expand on it. I'm sure he has a lot more thoughts on that.
yeah, no, for sure. But I think this book is great, and I think that anybody who is going through a tough time,
Mm,
you need this reassurance that you're not alone, and
mm,
that there are ways to, we've done a lot of shows on grief here. There are
mm,
ways to navigate grief
mm.
that are a lot easier than kind of just the traditional, I have to wear black for a year. That's a
Yeah.
lot of like the Greek culture does,
Yeah. Yeah.
and be sad forever and not dance. And, my dad didn't want to dance for a while. And I go, "Dad,
Mm.
Mom knows you love dancing. Do you
Yeah.
really think she wants us to not dance and not be happy?"
Oh, yes.
I have a picture of her in my kitchen and she's just smiling so big. It's the
Yes.
biggest, happiest smile on a photo I think I have of her. And I swear that one photo helps me every day to smile. I don't feel that intense pain. I put my hand on her heart every morning
Mm,
and I tell her
mm.
hello and that I love her, and I feel good.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't know I would ever feel like that. I
Oh,
feel good because I know that she wants me to be good.
yes. Yes. Oh man, you just made me think of that. Um, what is it? Leanne Womack song. I hope you dance. Do you know that song?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and
Oh,
now I'm gonna
it's
cry.
so good. I love that song. I love that song. It is perhaps I feel like we keep dropping these little musical journeys, for everyone, but it's such a good song to remember, especially when you've lost someone and you're having a hard time dancing or smiling. It's like listen to that song and perhaps you will be encouraged, to keep moving.
Yeah. Well, Bose, I love you.
Oh, I love you,
Um,
Maria.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for the time today, and of course, the great book. We'll put a link to it in the summary of this episode for everybody. And until we see you again, have an
Oh,
amazing, blessed, urgent, beautiful life.
amazing. I love it. Thank you. I wish the same for you, Maria. Thank you for the opportunity
Thank
and the
you.
platform. You're such a
Of
great friend.
course.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate you. All right, friends. Like I said, the book is out now, The Urgent Life. You can get it wherever books are sold. Before you go, friends, do not forget to check out Macy's.com/Heal Squad for any upcoming gifts, any outfit needs that you may have, any kitchen needs or home needs. I have curated my favorite things from Macy's.com and put them all on our link, Macy's.com/Heal Squad. Of course, as you know, they're a big supporter of this show, helps us keep the lights on and pay Kelsey. So if you would use that link for anything that you want to buy that maybe isn't even on there, it really does support us and help us keep this show going. So we thank you for that. In the meantime, be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.